Share the
Welcome to
space.
San Andreas. I'm CJ from Grove Street. Landed the heinous gangbangers in cold heat. And Los Santos neighbors get no sleep. Beefing with anybody, competing, even police. Fold deep in a green rag with gold feet. Blast with the flag on the strap. That's OG. Stay in shape, hit the gym, lift the weights. Get super cut, big and buff, nice and straight. You got stats, respect, weapon, skill. Stamina, muscle, fat, and sex appeal. You get clothes from Binkos and Prolapse, suburban zip. Victim and desatch. Watch your back when in rival hoods. They'll test just to guess if your survival's good. Ducking shells at the Clucking Bell. Jump out, busting gun until they tuck their tail. It seemed like I'm on impossible missions. Twisted predicaments, hostile positions. Tenpenny and Pulaski harass me. Cop cars been on our ass the last past week. Cause the Dre is for the gangsters, homeboy. Hands is the language for the bangers, homeboy. And it's dangerous, homeboy. Get your brains moved for how you do your fingers, homeboy. Heat hot, keep popping hot ones. Dump them out, bend the block, shake before the cops come. Listen for sirens, they don't got none. Back another lap, catch a straggler with the shotgun. Hitting them up with that Grove Street lock and a dirty slingshot. No Levi.
What up, what up, what up? Sup. Let's go. Oh, I gotta bring up some people. I was too busy busting down to the song. I forgot to bring up some speakers. Let's go. Oh, Billy requested. Here we go. Billy.
So, what's good?
Here we go. Fellow people, how are ya?
Sup.
It is a Friday, everybody. Sure is.
Let's do it.
Billy, can you Billy is now co-host. Here we go. Let's go.
Sup?
Sup. All right, I'm just gonna drop this space in a few chats and links, places.
Yeah, let's get it going.
Yeah, let's go. Mess, thanks for joining. Wampa, thanks for joining. Fear No Unknown, thanks for joining. Let's go. Retweet this space.
Yeah. How's everyone feeling on Friday?
Man, I don't know about you, but I just had nightmares of that goddamn Quetzal all night. All flying above me and like flat hitting me in the head and shit.
Maybe we should make some of those like those ceiling type things, for the Quetzal, so you can put it over your bed and give
Yeah.
yourself nightmares.
Oh, yeah. Or like a little night light shoots on the ceiling like a bat light.
That'd be rad.
Yeah, don't get me started with the merch ideas.
Oh, I'll get you started. That's what I'm here for.
All right.
Get those juices flowing.
I think people are sleeping. I think people are sleeping right now, actually.
Yeah, after the sub train and
Yeah.
all the festivities last night, people are like, "Oh, I'm wrecked."
Yeah, we might have to. I don't know. We might have to amp this up somehow.
Oh,
Dude, that sub train was super nostalgic. Holy shit.
yeah. The internet needs more of those. So there was one of the projects we contemplated back in the day was like an IRL like subtrain, like an actual train. We didn't end up spending all the money on that because it's actually quite a bit of money to like charter a train and like ride it around cross country and throw a bunch of parties like in major cities. But that was one of the ideas that we had, and like I feel like that would have been a great way to bring awareness to the power of the subtrain, because like once you experience one, you're like, dang, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, last night was pretty fun doing that. It went on for a good little bit. It went on for like 25 minutes.
Yeah,
dude. Felt like 2021, dude.
yeah.
I was like, holy shit.
Bring back those vibes, because those are good vibes.
Back like we never left.
Yeah.
So Billy, what are your final, first initial thoughts, actually, since it just got revealed, right? But I'm still curious on what's behind the coming soon third plate. You dropped that the other day, and I was like, yeah, there is still another coming soon plate, and I was like, I wonder what it is.
Oh yeah. There's definitely more, right? Like, I think in broad strokes, right? Like the obvious, like direction all this all of the DuckGod experience has been heading towards, and this is the way we kind of started the narrative, right? Like, is this idea that the wacky ducks, as the enlightened chosen ducks, are going to be able to visit the DuckGod and claim gifts, right? So that's like the obvious overarching narrative of like, where we've been heading this whole time. But the fun part was that there was all this like lore and backstory that needed to be executed on before we actually arrived at that. And I don't think anyone really knew that that was going to be part of the experience, right? Like, I think a lot of folks thought like, hey, once you get, your toad and you lick them with your duck and you get your wacky duck, well, then the duck god like gifting thing is going to happen like right now, right? Like, it's just like, that's what's going to happen. But little did everyone know that Frankie had, been squirreling away a bunch of art and a bunch of ideas around, the backstory for the Duck God and the entire Subducks universe. That all existed as like a piece of, narrative, creative work, artistic work, right? Like, that he had been jamming on for quite some time. And so that was like part of the fun of, at least for me, for this year, right, is like going through that and getting to share that with the whole community, and taking y'all through that experience and watching the team execute on Frankie's vision and how to build that and roll that out and deliver it to the community and to the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of my favorite parts about yesterday on the stream was when we rewatched everything. We went back and went through each panel, right? And like actually watching the videos, it actually like brought back, because this thing's been going on for, I mean, definitely a long few months, and the art and the planning and everything's been so like perfectly executed, right? And I don't think there's been any disappointment on how things have rolled out. I think people have been, beyond happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the team's done a great job. Yeah, and it's always fun to see like an artist's vision come to light, especially or to life, especially at this scale, right? Like, it's, I think of it as like almost like a, you know, like an interactive like movie or game, right? Like, getting played out over time, right? Like, where you start with a couple teaser trailers, right? Like, it warms you up to this idea, like, okay, there's a bunch of stuff here that I'm going to need to understand, and then you start engaging in that journey and that process, and that's where we're at, right? Like, the battle is happening, right? Like, you get to see that prophecy being fulfilled in that narrative unfolding, and so I think that's super cool. Like, I don't see a lot of projects with that kind of depth to them, uh, and that level of execution, right? Like, we've been going at this thing all year, like, and that was the plan, right? Like, that 2023 was going to be
That's
the year of the Duck God.
that's the
Um,
God, seriously.
yeah,
Still not done. I mean, I know a bunch of things that are still, we're trying to execute on, and that'd be fun for community and stuff. And we dropped a little bit yesterday on the stream, about the temple and stuff like that.
yeah,
It's just a ton of sweet stuff that's still coming, and it's
yeah.
all about the universe of this, subducks.
Yeah, the team's still cooking. And like, one of the things that we realized is like, with the market kind of cooling, we could slow down a little bit and be a little bit more thoughtful and intentional around the executions. But, part of like what we experienced in like the original, drops was this idea that we were just like racing to get stuff out the door because the space was so hot and things were moving so fast. Um, and part of what we've done this year is to start to think more about like longevity. Like, how do you make these experiences reusable? How do you make them replayable? How do people get to relive this stuff? Because the size of the community is going to ebb and flow, but this art is something that we think lots of people should experience, not just hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands, right? Like, we want to see this taken to mass market. And so how do we execute on that, and how do we set everything up for long-term survivability? And that's what's one of the cool things about blockchain, is like, blockchain is forever. So there's lots of great tools and resources available to decentralize things, to put things on chain that are going to live like at least as long as blockchains like Ethereum live. So that's a lot of the work that folks don't see behind the scenes, is like the stuff that we're doing to ensure these collections live on. And I think one of the cool trends that we've seen this year, one of the interesting things that we've seen, is the rise of ordinals, and a lot of the impetus behind that is this idea that Bitcoin being this, the OG chain, right? That there's a lot of provenance there, and that if you get stuff into it inscribed on Bitcoin, right, like that's gonna survive, like no matter what, like unless you do something dumb and you trade off that Satoshi and it gets written over. Um, uh, if you don't do that, if you keep that Satoshi intact, right, like that inscription will be around as long as Bitcoin is around. And so we're thinking a lot about how to, you know, provide that kind of longevity to all the stuff that we're doing now.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's absolutely perfect, and I love that. I was wondering if there's anyone in the audience that wants to come up and chat, ask questions, or just, join in.
Yeah, I think for context for everyone in the audience listening today, this is very much like a community space focused around, the DuckGod battle and some of the stuff that we've been cooking for the 2 year anniversary. So definitely want to make this like a free form community conversation. This isn't like a directed like uh, guest interview.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this
Instance of Sup in the Pond.
community.
So yeah,
Just,
anyone who wants to jump up here, raise your hand. Maybe we'll just start calling you up.
yeah, this is still anniversary.
Also, little side note. Matic is missing today, and that is because he just turned 30. So y'all go make sure that you wish him a happy
Woo!
birthday.
Happy birthday, Matic! Shout out.
Like,
Yes, sir. But Billy, man, I liked what you said though about like the ebb and the flow of the market and being able to slow down. I was actually on a Twitter space the other day talking exactly about that point. Is like we're kind of at this stage where it's not so full speed ahead all the time, and we can be more careful and we can roll things out a bit more patiently. And I kind of like it. I think it's more appropriate, and it feels right. It feels like how brands are supposed to do things. And I think I like the idea that we can slow our roll a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it feels good. It feels good.
Thank you. I'm glad you feel that way. Yeah, I feel that way too, right? Like, like I think it's just a sign of the market maturing, right? Like in the beginning, there's this incredible hype, and everyone wants to be like, front of the pack and like, breaking new ground and doing, first of its kind, right? Like as much as possible, or at least fast following and like, being part of that conversation. I think there's still plenty of that in Web3, right? Like there's plenty of like one-upsmanship, like trying to, break ground because there's so much opportunity to invent and create. But at the same time, the space overall has matured a bit, right? Like there's enough players, like, there's a lot of infra that's been built, a lot of, kind of best practices that have started to emerge. And so I think you see more and more projects taking advantage of some of those learnings, taking advantage of kind of the lull in, hype and trading and, trying to flip a bag every day sort of thing. And moving to this more mature model of, conversations, community, and creativity.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting just to kind of see, especially because we're I mean pretty solidified as like an OG project, and we've been around for a couple of years, and it's just interesting what like the process of launching and then continuing to survive looks like with each kind of, I don't want to say like NFT class, but like, there's a difference from the early 2021 projects to like the 2022s and now the 2023s. And I think it's just cool to see like how different projects have taken that sudden approach to, oh shit, like do we need to slow down? Do we want to try and like mesh with the actual data that we're looking at, or do we want to completely ignore it and kind of shoot ourselves in the foot? And I think we've definitely seen both this year, and I'm glad to say that we're a part of the latter, right? I think a lot of companies have really shot themselves in the foot just with that recency bias of 2021 and even like early 2022.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot of folks not not as active as they were, or just not around. I've definitely seen plenty of projects like that, right? Like it's funny because like you used to see, going back to 21, right? Like you'd see projects like flame out pretty quick, like people who weren't built for it or that were obvious like rugs, like they realized like, oh dang, I didn't really have a plan for any of this stuff. um, you know,
Nine.
they'd be gone in like months. um, but I think there's more, the folks that are left standing, right? Like in this environment of reduced liquidity, reduced attention. Like these are the folks that are going to be around. Yeah, I saw a tweet the other day that was exactly that, right? Like, you know, during bear markets like this, like look around. Like the people who are still here are the people who are going to make it long term.
Yep, yep. It's gonna feel good.
Yeah.
It's gonna feel real good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it already does, right? Like, and that's what was, I think, super fun about like bringing back those subtrain vibes last night was like this idea of like, oh yeah, we've all been here. Like, we've been through this. For so many of the subduck OGs, and for folks who hadn't experienced subtrains before, right? Like that must have been a pretty awesome experience too, or hadn't experienced one in a really long time, right? Yeah, like I love being able to participate and have that shared collective experience, where everyone like is feeling the vibes.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. And I think for anybody who's interested, I just put this up in Discord, but we're gonna do a little community stream and kind of get back to jamming out as a community and pitching some of the ideas to the team and having that real close relationship. I think that's something that made us extremely special and really set us apart. Like for any of the OG people, I mean, you remember the live streams every Thursday. You remember putting together the
Yep, yep.
pilot and sorting through the different scenarios and just doing that like team directly to community. And I think that last night was just another great example of that, just coming together, and everybody kind of feeling like we're all in that same place and that same conversation. And it's just really great to see, man. Like we're over 2 years into this, and there's so much breadth that a lot of other projects just couldn't maintain, and I think that's such a huge victory. And to kick off a huge part of like our journey and our story like right after we turned two was just such a sick thing. And last night, like that subtrain, it just felt like we were revamped a little bit. Like I don't know, just like a little reminder to Web3, like wait a second, don't fuck with the subducks now, because we're still very much just burning at the. It was great.
Don't fade the ducks. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, man. Saw a lot of old faces in that Discord last night. It was cool.
Yeah, folks that hadn't come through in a minute. Yeah, it's good. Like, right, like it's like getting the band back together, like throwing a house party and getting all your friends to come over that you haven't seen in a minute. It's nice.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
We got something pinned to the top of this space that's kind of suspicious.
Yep.
Yeah, if y'all
We
haven't
teased
seen
it last night.
Billy,
well,
I think you should maybe dive into this a little bit.
yeah, so I think we've been saving this one. This is the strong daddy goodness,
Yep.
the full
So
Stickley Farm experience. So yeah, if you don't know, King Strong,
now you
uh,
know.
yeah, now you're about to know. King Strong has a farm out in Tennessee, and it's not just like a production farm where they're just growing crops. They got some of that, but one of the things that Strong was really instrumental in his family was transforming that farm business, which was traditionally a kind of production farm, into more of a agritourism business. So taking it from just growing crops and selling them for cash to creating experiences for the community to bring folks together, like you see in a lot of holiday kind of times, right? Like particularly in the fall, right? Like you get your hay rides, you get your corn mazes, you get some games, good family stuff, right? Like uh, enjoying like the transition to cooler weather as summer starts uh, wane, and fall comes about, and you get to see the change in the leaves and the change in the seasons, and people can spend more time outside because it's not so dang hot. Yeah, we're giving y'all a chance to visit the farm, to spend some time on the Stickley family farm, and to hang out with King Strong himself, right? Like he's gonna be your personal tour guide for a
That'd
weekend
be awesome.
and take you around. Yeah, so you get to do the whole thing, the whole shebang, um, out there in Tennessee. So
Yeah,
if
pretty.
you haven't already checked out the Perk and Perk Shop, hit it up,
Yep.
see what's required,
It is
and
live now. Click the link.
exactly. And if you qualify, enter the raffle for your chance at a really what I think is like kind of a once in a lifetime experience, right? Like there's not a lot of these that are gonna come about through uh, anything that you do,
Yeah.
right? Like I think there are, people give away trips and stuff like that, but I think this one's particularly special because of the context, right? That you've got, one of the project founders essentially welcoming a community member and their guest to his home, right? Like to the place where he grew up, the business he built with his family, that was passed down to him, from his family. Like it's the family farm. Yeah, really, really, special gift to give to the community. And in the beginning when we were talking to Strong about it, like it was kind of a joke, like, hey, we should let people, go visit the farm. But when he was actually like open to the idea, right? Like it became this really special thing, and so we kind of saved it till the end, as like as a thing that we wanted to, one more thing type reveal.
It's like the best like
Yeah,
grand finale.
exactly. Yeah,
But
because
also it's not though. It's not the grand finale.
yeah, I think for the birthday perks though,
For the
like the
birthday.
2 year anniversary perks, I'm gonna say this is the cherry on top.
Yeah, this is it. I was talking
Yeah,
about DuckGod though. DuckGod is not the grand
definitely not. Yeah, yeah.
finale. Crypto. Crypto Dave. Good old Davey.
Uh-oh.
Davey, what
Uh-oh.
are you up to? Hiding over there, hiding behind that mute button.
Hey man, I'm just listening to the alpha. By the way, nobody go claim that perk because I really want it. So that'd be super
I know.
sick. My girlfriend is always wanting to go to different places, and this is like perfect for her. And so just nobody. I mean, who even really cares that Subduck's turn 2, right? Like, just don't claim it, like, and I'll claim it, and then it'll be straight. But no, man, it's gonna be a super cool perk, and I think that whoever gets it is gonna be super lucky, and being able to hopefully take a guest with you is gonna be super cool. And I think Stronk was saying that Antrocles, our very own whale, and Chonk Father is potentially going to ride on down for that trip as well,
Oh yeah, community
regardless
meetup.
of who wants to kind of hang out.
Wow.
And so I think we'll kind of let Stronk shape this out a little bit, but we might be able to kind of voluntarily get some folks to come on out and make it more of a community event. And maybe you're not just hanging out with Stronk, maybe you're hanging out with Antrocles and myself and maybe some others. So I think it's going to be fun. And worst case scenario, you get $50 at Applebee's instead, and me and my girlfriend get to go have fun on the farm. But
Rock
yeah,
your
it's gonna be
crocs
super
down at the
tight,
farm.
super super tight. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be
You
dope. Like
digging
if the
that?
community wants to rally around this particular weekend, right? Like, yeah. I mean, it is open to the public. So
That is true.
anyone who feels like making their way to Tennessee and spending some time at the Stickley Farm can do so. Yeah, I hear they got these glamping tents. I don't know if y'all have seen them, but they're nice. It's like camping, but not camping. You get the fresh air and the cool weather in the outdoors without all the work and the dust.
Billy, are there any additional logistics that maybe we should let the community know just as far as like any airfare
Yep.
or any of the agenda that's kind of planned for folks when they get there, things that they can choose to do on their own?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that we got to say about this perk, right? Like I think the first kind of logistical item is this is for U.S. folks only, right? Like we're not gonna fly people around the world to like make this happen because coordinating all that is just too complicated. So this is like a U.S. members perk. Sorry to all your international folks. I know that a lot of the second birthday stuff has been that way, and that's just a function of logistics, right? Like these things are. I've run a lot of international giveaways, and the executing on a lot of that stuff, and I think folks have seen this with even some of the shipping challenges we've had with merch and taxes and all kinds of fun stuff, right? Like, and then when you move to travel, right? Like you got all like potentially visas and passports, and it gets real messy, potentially. So we wanted to make sure that we could deliver on the goods and not give someone a negative experience. So we decided to focus on the U.S. Um, and so that's the first qualification. Um, and then we do want to open it up, obviously, to the winner, and we're giving them the option to bring a guest because these glamping tents are pretty big, so there's enough space for a couple folks to sleep inside. That said, you're going to be sharing a bed. It's a queen size bed, but you're going to be sharing a bed. So
Lumber
make sure that
party.
your chosen guest is actually someone you want to share a bed with. Don't make this weird.
Don't make it weird.
Yeah, don't make it weird. Don't be. Don't,
I mean, or you can make it weird.
yeah, you
It'll be
can
strong.
make it weird, but
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
on you. My advice is don't make it weird. Like don't make it the sort of thing like, oh, there's only one bed. Dang, I didn't know. Like, no, there's only one bed. So don't make it weird.
That's what I'm saying, man. Romantic getaway. Nobody claim it. Come on now.
Yeah, make sure the other person wants to share a bed with you. um, and then when you so in terms of the airfare, right? Like we're gonna cover, for single individual, no problem. We'll cover 100% up to $1,000, which when we were researching in the U.S., like is pretty much anywhere like that we could see. Um, and if you do bring a guest, right? Like we'll go up to that $1,000 airfare limit, right? So however you all want to split that, right? Like if you're like, hey, we each take $500 off our airfare, whatever it is. Like if you're bringing a guest for the winner, yeah, it'll go like that. Once you get out there, you obviously you get yourself access to the glamping tents. There's a whole host of activities, right? Like I mentioned, the hayride, the corn maze. They got a bunch of like bouncy things and slides and stuff like that. Lots of fun stuff for kids. If you got kids and you want to bring kids out and make it a family thing, you can. I think that'll require a little bit more coordination with the team, but still possible. And I think the plan is for Strunk to kind of be your host at the farm, but then he's also going to take you out on the town. I want to say like the first or second night. I don't know exactly when that'll be, because I think we're still like nailing down dates for this. Do we end up putting something like that in a perk shop, Austin? Do we actually nail the date on this yet?
it says end of let me run it back. It says
I think he's doing September,
yeah,
October,
end of
right?
September,
Something like that.
October.
Yeah. So we wanted to do it during this fall season, which is kind of like the peak season there, right? Like when it's like the best time to be there, in terms of like the weather and the overall vibes. But we also want to, have a little bit of flexibility so, we can accommodate travel and all that fun stuff because, everyone's got like different things going on. So it sucked to win and be like, oh, can't make it.
Yep, fall vibes seem sick, and then of course you have plenty of time to be able to like flesh it out.
Yes.
It doesn't feel so immediate. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect for me and my girlfriend, so nobody claim it. We'll see. I've won a KingFrog from the perk shop before, and I think I'd gladly trade the KingFrog for this trip. So we'll see if I have that same luck.
Unless
And
that KingFrog wins the Quetzal battle.
that KingFrog actually didn't go in.
Oh, okay.
I felt my strategy was pretty, I think, a little different from everyone else's. I went with one loaded out frog,
Hmm.
and I told him that he just needs to kind of
Oh
stay
yeah,
in the
see, I kind of
background.
wanted to hear your strategy. I wanted to see what you hear.
Yeah, yep. One frog, max armor, and I told him, I said, just stay in the back, like just
You
let
told him
everybody
that?
else go first. Like all these armies, they have big egos. They think they're gonna do it right off rip. I said, just chill, like stay in the background, just blend in, be cool with everybody, be their friend, and then you come out kind of right at the end. You still got your 3 lives. The Quetzal's too weak, so I think that's what he's gonna do. He didn't get attacked last night, so he's been listening to me so far. But no, in all seriousness, I had a couple other King Frogs, and I debated it. Um, I think I lost a little bit of confidence as the pot grew so big. I lost a little confidence in the odds, but at this point, I'd be hit with a late fee. So I hope people got theirs in under the wire.
Oh yeah, that is something I wanted to talk about. Is that like late join fee? So I think I mischaracterized it on the stream last night. Um, in that the late fee increments daily all the way up to that 0.03, right? So the original entrance fee was 0.01, and then every day it increments by, I want to say, 0.003, to then on the last day it'll be that 0.03. So the sooner you enter, you still are going to pay a late joiner fee. But if you enter before, I want to say 6 p.m. Pacific today, you'll pay, the least late fee. So it's not too late to get in more frogs. Uh, you will pay slightly more to enter a frog than you would have if you had done it yesterday. But if you wait till tomorrow, you'll pay even more. Like tomorrow after anytime after 6 p.m. tonight, Pacific. So yeah, the sooner you jump in, the less of a fee you will pay. That's a way to think about it.
Hell yeah. And I think that honestly works out better too, right? Because I think if it was just one immediate step up to the 0.03, then I think it would be pretty obvious for people to wait all the way till the end
Yep.
of this initial week. But now it's kind of just like a scaled risk to reward. So I like that better personally.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It encourages
Yeah.
people to go early, right? At least in terms of the fee.
Billy, do we think I know we have our DuckGod bot. Is this something that we think we could have update the Discord like every day at 6 p.m. Pacific?
Yeah,
I think we'll have to ask James maybe, but
yeah.
that'd be pretty sick.
I think that's the way it's supposed to work, right? Like that was always the intention, right? Is that it'll kick out updates, right? Like more or less real time, like nearish real time, right? Like as soon as that event gets to the bot, because there's a bot that's like listening for all those events coming from the contract, and then posting in the Discord. That was always the motivation for that, was to be able to provide like an easy place for you to see status updates on what's happening with the battle without having to go to the battle page every single time. Now, obviously, the experience on the battle page is much better, right? Like you get the art, you get the audio, you get the whole experience. But we recognize that we got a lot of degens here who are hanging out in Discord quite a bit and too lazy to click a link and go to a website. So wanted to bring the info into Discord to make it easy on y'all.
Let's go. And I think the plan is also to have Ringals host another one of those watch parties towards the end. Maybe watch the winner live. I think would be sick.
Yes. I think that
So
is a great plan. That is exactly what we
yeah,
should do. In the same way
yep,
we
yep.
kick this thing off as a family, we should watch this thing light up and come to a resolution as a family.
I really hope that just like whoever wins it, I hope they're in the Discord for that. Like I think that would be so sick.
Oh yeah.
Just to have the clock hit 9 Eastern and somebody's just in the chat like, just
Yeah.
losing their mind, dude.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's going to get pretty exciting down towards the end because there's not going to be that many frogs standing, right? Like, as we get to the end of this thing, right? Like, there's going to be fewer and fewer frogs left, and I think people are going to get pretty excited.
Yeah, I think we'll have an easy scope, especially when we hit that last watch party to to know, like, going into that watch party, like, who's still in it, who are we paying attention to.
Yep.
So that's gonna be fun because, like, with this initial one, it was everybody in it. And yeah, it's gonna be sick.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
gonna be sick.
yeah. I mean, it's not clear like total number of entrants yet, right? Because we still got this late entry window. Um, but yeah, I think looking at like the number of frogs that took damage and or died, yesterday, that's about the number that's gonna get eliminated every block cycle, barring a large number of late entrants. Um, so you kind of know like what it's going to look like towards the end. It's not going to be a huge number of frogs on that last day, or even in those last couple few days, right? Like you're going to be in like those double digit numbers of frogs. And I think for folks that have frogs that make it to those later rounds, when I've seen these other blockchain battle games go down, right? Like when you get to those final rounds, it gets pretty heated and excited because you're like, no way, I could actually win this thing. Like people start getting that feel, right? Like when it's like when you're holding a lottery ticket, right? And like they're calling off the numbers or whatever, and you're like, I got that one, I got that one, I got that one. And you're like, holy shit, I can win this thing.
Dude, that's how I felt. That's how I felt just last night, dude. There's like 9 or 10 or so frogs that got hit, and I was like, yes, I can win
Yeah,
it.
exactly, right? You start to get that DGen feeling that we all love, that FOMO, right? Like where you're like,
Oh yeah,
it could be
dude.
me, it could be me. This could be the time I win it all back with one frog.
I think knowing my luck, I'm gonna be 4th place. Just like make it to like the
That's
final
just your
attack.
raw prediction.
That's my raw prediction is I'm gonna make it to
All right,
4th
I'm gonna
place
clip
and
this right now.
I'll make it to the last day. I'm gonna show up to the watch party just talking shit, and then I'm getting 4th place, and it's gonna be Dave gets slapped in the face.
Yeah, the last day of the watch party will be fun though.
You know what's cool about the 4th place roll or any of those kind of like last seats? Like while you don't claim an actual official prize, you do get this story you get to tell for life, right? Like where you're like, I was this close, right? Like,
Grandpa, did you make money on NFTs? I
exactly.
almost did.
Yep, exactly. You get to be the meme, right? Like I was one
Yeah.
frog away, boy.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
So there is a glory to it, right? Like it's not the winner's glory, but it's the came real close.
Yep. And I think one of the coolest things just about it is that, like, of all the things we do, this was like a full all hands on deck type of effort.
Yeah.
I mean, Billy, I think it'd be great to kind of speak to all the different elements between the art, the front and back end development, the community prep, everything like that. I mean, what took the longest? Like, what was the biggest stage? Take us all through the behind the scenes. I think that'd be pretty sick.
Yeah, well, I mean, the longest I think is like just the overall concept, right? Like in getting to a place where we're like, hey, we're going to execute on, this whole vision for this year, right? Like, because Frankie's been noodling on that, right? Like for a long time, many, many, many months, right? Like, and a lot of that journey is his, right? Like, it's very personal in terms of that creative process, right? Like, the inspiration for just about everything that we do at SupDucks, right? Like, comes from Frankie. Like, he is obviously like the creative visionary behind all this stuff. So, in terms of what takes the longest, it's that, right? Like, it's that creative birth process coming out of his like mind and whatever else is going on to make that stuff happen, right? Like I've read lots of different like artistic interpretations of what artists go through in their particular journey and their creative processes. I'm not sure exactly how Frankie's works. Like I've seen bits and pieces of it, right? Like I know like certain things get in the way, right? Like when he's like stressed or worried about stuff or having to do calls and things like that, right? Like that gets in obviously like gets in the way of it, and in the same way that a lot of I think you hear about this maybe with software engineers or with folks that are like in a kind of like a practical creative space, right? They need to get into this flow state, right? And I think it's even more so for more like creative arts, right? Like where they really need to get into this flow state, like they got to be ready for it and they got to be feeling it. and they can do a bunch of like pre-work to get there, but it's not something they like 100% control. Whereas I think software engineers have a little bit of an easier time like entering that flow state. I think artistic creatives, like particularly fine art ones, like have a harder time, just because like that stuff's pretty amazing, right? Like to literally like sit down with like a blank iPad and then like there's something there, right? Like that is pretty phenomenal. And
Yep.
with this process for Frankie, right? Like a lot of it was, he took some trips, like did some, I think we even talked about those like for a while, right? Like where he spent some time down in Mexico. And he's done that a few times, like in the last couple few years, right? Like, um, being Mexican American, right? Like he has a lot of roots down there, and so he's taken multiple trips, either these kind of spiritual journeys and kind of like tourist journeys, right? Like where he's gone to major sites, a lot of these ancient temples and ruins. And he's also gone on a lot of art expeditions, right? Like go around, like he's got a number of friends down there who are artists as well. So he'll go around, hang out with them, go to art shows, like meet other artists in the area, figure out like what the pulse is. So all of that stuff came into the creation of what you've seen with DuckGod as a whole. And I think you see a lot of that inspiration in this battle in particular, right? Like you can feel it in some of the sound design. You can see it. I mean, the Quetzal is like just pretty much pure embodiment of that, right? Like a very Latin American, like influence, right? Like you can see, you see a lot of that iconography. Uh, so and you see it with a lot of the art as well, right? Like from the puzzles and stuff that are part of this experience, even to the battle scene that you see, right? Like with the way the frogs are depicted there and the particular armaments that they have and things like that. So yeah, I think that was like kind of the longest process. But once we decided that we were gonna move towards building this particular battle experience, I think there was a strong, and this is something Frankie's been doing a lot more this year, and I think everyone's seen this, right? Like he's pushing the team to level up. He wants to pass on more of those skills and responsibility to the team so that they can execute on these visions that he has, in a in more hands-on way. And so I think the first shout out I want to make in terms of like folks like making this battle experience happen like goes to Unibros, right? Like so much of the art he contributed to, and he PM'd the whole thing, right? Like he was the guy leading the meetings typically. He was the guy coordinating with all the engineers, kind of get updates, making sure that the art pipeline was like working, that they were getting stuff on time, hitting me up to like get him shit that he needed that he didn't have. Typically, like kind of like licensed art files and stuff like that. I didn't play a big role in this. I'm more of like a facilitator, like, hey, what's stuck and what can I help? But he was the one like making it all happen. So huge shout out to Unibros for that. Like this is by and large, uh, if you exclude Frankie's vision from the equation, which is pretty hard to do, impossible to do, Unibros is really the person that like made this happen in a very real way. And the other person on kind of the vision side that helped a lot is Octo, right? Like I think between Uni and Octo, a lot of the art and the experience was knocked out, right? Like a lot of the kind of the game mechanics and the game design and gameplay elements like really comes from Octo. And so for folks that don't know Octo well, because he's a quieter member of the pond. He and Frank can go way back. They went to art school together. They worked at Zynga together. They've known each other for a long, long time. And we were lucky enough this year for kind of the stars to align, where he had more free time, and we wanted to build more game stuff. So it was a really natural fit to say like, hey, here's an incredibly talented resource that we can tap to accelerate the stuff that we want to build with DuckGod and so many things that we're doing. And um, and at the same time, get him involved in ducks and being a part of the overall project. So yeah, super stoked for both of them in terms of their contribution, because I think they led a lot of the vision, right? Like they basically translated Frankie's vision into the execution that you see. Um, and then on the development side, right? Like so, there's the art is a big piece of it, right? Because that's what you kind of experience on the front end. And then yeah, so to talk about kind of that front end design, Not Number was lead on most of the front end development. Him and James really were like the tag team, with Not Number being I'd say the lead kind of like front end artist in terms of actual like code and execution. Um, so, one of the cool things about Octo is that because he's worked on these games teams for so long, he understands how to translate this stuff and set up the workflows pretty well. So, Frankie communicates the vision, Uni gets it organized and starts cranking on the art. Octo helps with a lot of that production art, helps translate like with with Not Number and James, like how to implement that on the front end. And then you got Hex and Pseudo on the back end. Hex really leading most of the back end dev, smart contracts, all that fun stuff. So that's the kind of the core of being able to create a blockchain game is you need some smart contract work. And yeah, and Hex did a great job there, right? Because this is not like, while blockchain battle games have been done before, there's just not a ton of them, right? Like it's not like a templated thing, right? Like NFT drops have become like pretty well templated. Like there's like a well-defined set of contracts in terms of like, hey, this is what we can use. There's a lot of kind of off-the-shelf components. There was definitely open source resources or other contracts that had been deployed that Hex was able to draw from, but a lot of this was unique to our experience and what we wanted to build, and so he knocked out all that stuff. Yeah, so I think that's most of the core team that worked on it. Obviously there's a ton of community and marketing support. Shout out to Austin and Dave helping educate the community and try and
Yes,
get the
sir.
word out. That's always super important, right? Because if people don't know about it, or they don't know how it works, right? Like then they don't get to use it. So definitely a big team effort to pull this off at the scale that we have. And I think Frankie was saying this in the Discord the other day, that like not a lot of teams have executed on this, right? On something of this scale. Lots of folks talk about Web3 and blockchain, and we've done so many innovative things in the blockchain space, and this is yet another one that we can really be proud of, right? Like that, there's not a lot of experiences that anyone in the world has had like this, or will get to have, anytime soon. Um, and I think to kind of bring this full circle, I talked earlier in the space about making this stuff live on and be reusable. It's definitely one of the ideas that we have. So you may see some variant of this, like take on another form down the road, whether that's just community-based games where people can kind of just play for fun, or there might be something more, something a little meatier. Now that we've got like the scaffold for this, and we've got our own contract, and we have we've gone through one cycle of developing an experience like this, might do something like this again.
Yep. And we just might need some community help to figure out what folks are most excited about.
100%.
I think that's a huge part about building it out further, is like, it's cool to be able to roll something out as a team, and then to be able to say, well, how do you guys think we can, what path comes next? I think is a really cool part. And I just want to take a second to give my personal shout outs to the team, because like we've watched this specific stage of DuckGod come into fruition for quite some time. Shout out Unibros and Octo. I'd say about every other day they're just jamming out in the team comms. Like you couldn't even like if I were to jump in, like I couldn't be in there because like that's how sacred it was. Like it was just like, no, we're getting to fucking work, and we're doing it like every other day, like a couple hours at a time. Like they really work their ass off on it. Uh, Huge shout out to John and James on the front end of the development. Pseudo and Hex especially Hex. I want to give a shout out to. He was huge with the customer support. He would he would field questions like for battle entry and like blockchain questions that like I just personally could not fix for people, and so I'd have to ping him in. I'd be like, Hex, dude, like, and he'd knock it right out of the park. So huge shout out to Hex for helping the community with that. Big shout out to KingFrog and Billy and Austin and myself and Rachel for putting together a good push to the community and keeping everybody, abreast on the situation. And someone else I want to mention, just in general, but for this as well, huge shout out to TJ. TJ's down in the audience right now, but this dude makes
Yeah.
killer art.
Okay.
He's helped with a ton of our promos and the stuff that you've seen like very recently, like our YouTube. Like if you go back and you watch Sup in the Pond on YouTube, like that's TJ. Some of the promos we did for DuckGod and the KingFrog farm, like the picture that you see up in the pinned tweet, like that's TJ. And the dude's he makes great art. Like you can ping him and ask him like, hey bro, like we need this, or we're thinking that, and like instantaneously, like the next time you check your phone, he's got something for you. So huge shout out to TJ. I'm sure I'm missing people. Obviously, shout out Frankie for the vision and setting all this in motion. But just to be a part of it, I mean, it's such a fun thing, and it really took all hands on deck. And also shout out the community for literally almost matching 10 ETH in a bear market and relatively cheap entries for this game. I mean, that's fucking spectacular. I think we nearly hit like 300 KingFrogs entered into this game. That's insane. So just shout out you guys, and we appreciate the patience and the support, and the good ideas and the constructive criticism, and like this is what we live for. So big shouts to the whole team. Big shouts.
100%. Yeah, I think it's super. One of the things that I really like about working at Megavolt, right? I kind of try to structure my career around is small teams that make big impact, right? Like that do things you would normally, ascribe to much larger teams. Like I think that's part of the competitive advantage that startups typically have is that because they don't have a lot of legacy infrastructure and unnecessary bureaucracy and process, that they can move pretty quickly and can do a lot with very little, right? And there's just a ton that goes into production like this. Like the amount of art, the amount of custom code that gets written for all these experiences is phenomenal, right? Like the repositories on both the art and the code side are really impressive. Like I think everyone that participated at that level like should be immensely proud of the work that they've done. And it'll be in their portfolio forever. Like that's one of the cool things about like working at a startup and having such a big impact is you could say like, hey, I worked on this game, like, and it, produced these kind of results. And, there's nearly 20 ETH in prizes, right? Like that's a serious game. Like most games don't even get anywhere near close to that. So, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Definitely a lot of
Also, shout out Caleb, shout out Terry, shout out the staging, the event crew. They put together this experience in person at VCon, and just witnessing that like start to finish, like before my eyes, was just insane. And it was unanimously the best booth at the whole convention. Gary Vee said it himself. Like it was super sick, and they absolutely killed it on the IRL type of vibe. So super sick, and definitely hope that we can bring more of that to you guys. That would be super cool. A little bit of alpha, but we can't dig too deep. But yeah, man, I mean, just such a cool thing, and it's like you said too, Billy, just to be able to like slap that on a resume and just add it to the folder is pretty insane. Not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah, very few people can, right? Like it's really something special, right? Yeah, I think that's a lot of what we get to experience in being early to the NFT space, right? Is that we get to be part of these early communities. We get to see like what happens in terms of how these projects build and evolve, and we get to have experiences that not it's like being one of the first rides at Disneyland, right? Like that sort of thing is the way I kind of think about it, right? Like imagine like right after Disneyland opened, you're like one of the first like 1,000 people to like go on one of the rides there, right? Like it's that sort of thing, right? Like being part of Web3 now is like that, in the NFT space, right? Like is like there are not that many people that are doing these things, but these are pretty phenomenal like experiences that you will remember and that you can pass on and that will hopefully shape you in some important way. I know it has. I know all this stuff has changed my life, right? Like, I think everyone here hopefully has had enough good experiences that it's changed them for the better too. Yeah, I'm super super stoked and super grateful to be able to jam on all this stuff with y'all.
Hell
Yes.
yeah. Well, look, guys, we
So
got just a few minutes, so I think we should definitely kind of wind down and give out a couple key reminders. So first and foremost, if you guys want to jam out on Monday with me and the mods and anybody from the team who wants to jump in, we're going to do a little community jam sesh and get cooking on some ideas that we've been chatting on in the Discord, and keep kind of figuring out how we should roll further. We got the Stronk Stickley Farm trip giveaway in the perk shop now live, so go claim that, or don't claim it because I want it. But that's live in the perk shop. You can claim it, covering airfare up to $1,000 US only. But I think that should be good because unless you're like in Los Angeles, New York, or Chicago, any of those places, it's generally not too expensive. We got plenty of other birthday perks: Supducks NFT, KingFrog NFT, KingFrog Megatoad plushies, some cool gift cards. Yeah, so it's been a hell of a second birthday. We got a DAO call next Thursday for the DAO, still cooking. I'm sure I'm missing something because there's always something, but yeah, if anybody wants to come up and sup it up for the last couple of minutes, they sure can. But I think that's it, unless I'm missing something. Oh, and you got like 6 days to enter more frogs if you want to enter more frogs in the battle game, but it keeps getting more expensive with each day, so you got to play that to what you think is the best advantage.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see if someone like swoops in last minute, right? Like it is like just do because I think the math checks out still, right? Like that you can place a pretty good bet on winning this thing. You'd have to put in a chunk of ETH, but frogs haven't gotten to the place where this thing is like not worth entering, right? Like I was worried in the beginning that might happen, right? Like that would drive down right? Like there's this kind of tipping point, right? Like where there's too many frogs in, and then the price of frogs on the market is such that it's cost prohibitive to join, right? Like we made the join fees relatively, digestible, given the scale of the prize pot. But I was worried that the market dynamics might get to a place where it just wasn't interesting, and then we're just waiting around for the game to start because all the frogs have already been entered that are going to enter. But that hasn't happened. So there is still an opportunity for someone to potentially ape into this thing in a big way and be like, I'm taking it. I'm taking all the chips. And so I'm
Yep.
curious to see if anyone has those balls of steel to say like, this is going to be mine. I'm buying 1 million lottery tickets because I'm winning.
I saw a little floor sweep yesterday. I don't know exactly how many frogs, but it was a good little sweep. I think we might see a few more
Yeah.
over the next over the next week.
It's definitely possible, right? Like, given the math on this, right? Like, you got a good chance of winning this thing, simply by doing that. You know, just and allocate a pretty sizable ETH bag to buying a bunch of frogs and entering them in this contest. You have a really good chance of winning.
Hell yeah.
And then I think the last thing I want to talk about, like, there's a couple products in the on the drop side, right? Like, you got those
Yep.
KingFrog towels, you got those DuckGod hats, and those DuckGod tees. They're not going to last forever. So if you're thinking like, oh, maybe I should at some point, do it before they're gone will be my guidance. Like, if you think that may be something that you want, like, we haven't even brought back. There's so much merch that we've executed on over the course of the years that's been like pretty incredible, and like a lot of it I have. And as it like wears over time, I'm like, man, I probably should have gotten another one of those because I don't know if that's ever going to come back. And so that's one of those things, right? Like, that's the whole FOMO thing, right? Like, there's the fear of missing out, and then there's missing out. Missing out sucks. So don't do that. If you think you might want it, right? Like, it's not, it's not crazy expensive, and you get to rep that deck love. So I'm gonna
look back at the Pink Dolphin collab.
Oh yeah.
From back in the day. I got that sitting in my dresser, and I'm like, man, like, no, like, some people don't even know what this is all about. Like, nowadays, like,
yeah,
they kind of make for these little collectible drops. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there was a time, right, like, where we were running like I don't even know if a lot of people know about like the 3D duck shirt. Like, there was like a 3D design that we did, which like has like the red and blue like chip. Like where you wear 3D glasses and it like does that 3D effect. Like, we got one of those like back in the day, right? Like, there are some pieces that like were like not, they were around for a little while, but like not that long, because we were doing more of those like limited run drops, and that's what we're kind of bringing back with the merch drop side, is that we're going to be doing these like limited time capsules to experiment with different designs, to give you all fresh looks and an opportunity to tell us what y'all really like, what you're passionate about. So if you see something you like, definitely ape before it's gone, because these are going to be limited run. And then stay on the lookout for what we got cooking for the fall, because alpha alert, there's going to be more fun stuff this fall.
Subducks equals IP always.
That is what Frankie is great at, right? Like, is creating, original IP. He's worked with so many individuals and companies to help them, establish that visual identity, to create a visual brand, and to create, a culture and a lifestyle around that identity. And that's what he's doing here with his own characters and his own vision, which is so great to see. Like, it's really fun to be part of that and to watch it close up. I hope y'all enjoy it as much as I do, because I love doing this.
Hell yeah. And stick around, because I mean, anytime we go a little silent for a little bit, it's like when the market's consolidating, and the longer it consolidates, the harder it rips. So just take a breath, because
yep. And with that being said, the DuckGod is not finished, and keep on supping.
Sup, yeah.
This
on the San Andreas, I'm CJ from Landed the heinous gangbangers in cold heat. Los Santos neighbors get no sleep.
Sup. Thanks for joining Sup in the Pond. See you again soon. Next week. Next Friday.
Got stats, respect, weapons, skill, stamina, muscle, fat, and sex appeal. You get clothes from big goals and prolapse, suburban zip, victim and resex. Watch your back when in rival hoods. They'll test just to guess if your survival's good. Ducking shells at the cluck and bell. Jump out, busting, gun until they tuck their tail. it seem like I'm on impossible missions. Twisted predicaments, hostile positions. 10 penny if Pulaski harass me. Cop cars been on our ass the last past week. Cause the Dre is for the gangsters, homeboy. Hands is the language for the bangers, homeboy. And it's dangerous, homeboy. Get your brains moved for how you do your fingers, homeboy. Heat cop.